So these remarks are a little bit less about higher education and about democracy writ on the larger tapestry of how the internet is affecting the contemporary democratic scene. And it is about education and civic education in the larger sphere of the American political public sphere. And I'm going to present some remarks that are a little bit probably counterintuitive for people who are immersed in the deliberation and deep, intensive democratic education sphere where value comes pretty much from deep engagement. And I'm going to talk about the internet and democracy, and in particular a kind of online engagement that is very thin, very fast, and very broad. And these are preliminary kind of thoughts because the empirical experiences that I've been thinking about lately are very recent. And in particular, just over the past year, there have been 4 really dramatic instances of online, powerful civic and political and democratic engagement in the United States that I think warrant our attention and reflection and some thinking about what they mean for democracy. And just let me talk a little bit about those 4 cases. The first is Kony 2012. How many people have seen the Kony 2012 video? Right? A video put out by Invisible Children about 20 minutes long about this horrible person, Joseph Kony, who abducts children and murders lots of people. The amazing thing about this video is that it garnered 100 million views in the first 3 or 4 days of its release, the fastest spreading viral internet video ever, surpassing Justin Bieber, Lady Gaga, whatever. Second case is of Planned Parenthood versus the Susan G. Komen Foundation. As many people know, earlier this year, the Susan G. Komen Foundation decided to stop funding Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood got word of this. Somebody on Planned Parenthood put out a tweet saying, we don't like the Susan G. Komen Foundation's decision. Within just a week of that, their Facebook page got, I don't know how many, probably tens of millions of likes, and the Susan G. Komen Foundation got a lot of flack. Within a week, they reversed their decision. Within 2 or 3 weeks, the board member who was responsible allegedly for pushing this agenda resigned, and the Susan G. Komen Foundation decided to revisit its decision to refund Planned Parenthood. Third example of viral engagement, Trayvon Martin. As you know, earlier this year, young African-American man, Trayvon Martin, was walking home from a grocery store after buying a Diet Coke and a bag of Skittles. Something happened. He had an altercation with a neighborhood watch activist named George Zimmerman. Zimmerman shot and killed Trayvon Martin. Trayvon Martin was taken into George Zimmerman was taken into custody. The police decided that it was an act of self-defense, released Zimmerman. A few weeks later, Trayvon Martin's parents put out a petition on change.org calling for further investigation of this case. That petition was the quickest petition, gained several million signatures on change.org. Subsequently, the governor of Florida appointed a special prosecutor to investigate the case. That special prosecutor brought second-degree murder charges against George Zimmerman. Fourth case, throughout the last year, there was 2 pieces of legislation winding through Congress, the Stop Online Piracy Act and PIPA, the Protection of Intellectual Property Act. When these acts were sponsored with broad bipartisan support, everybody thought they were a done deal. The industry side was motion picture industry, recording industry, favored stronger intellectual property protections. By the end of last year, there had been a lot of buzz primarily on technology blogs and among freedom of information kinds of activists and open source activists. That kind of built into a crest of online activism in which Wikipedia actually went dark for a day. There was a web strike, and a number of other large online organizations, including Google, protested the action in different ways. On the day after the Wikipedia blackout, I think probably a dozen congressmen who sponsored the bill reversed their positions, and hundreds came out saying that we really need to rethink the PIPA-SOPA legislation, right? So 3 out of these, so I call these cases of viral engagement because they spread very quickly. So all of these cases, with the exception of PIPA-SOPA, kind of begin and end within a 2 or 3 week period. With the possible exception of Coney 12, these three of the 4 examples are politically impactful. That is, they have targets. The people who sign these petitions don't like the actions of those targets, and the targets change their mind. Coney 2012, it's a little bit more difficult to tell whether it had political effect. There are already 100 U.S. Special Forces in Africa looking for Joseph Kony. AFRICOM commander says that the Coney 2012 video at least secured funding for those guys to stay there a little bit longer and do their work. So I want to spend the rest of my time talking about 2 different dimensions of viral engagement. The first is how to think about it. What is the structure of viral engagement? And then the second is, what do we make of it democratically speaking? Now, it's tempting when you think about these cases to think, well, the action in viral engagement is the millions of people who take action online. They see the video, they decide to watch it, they click on a change.org petition, and that is certainly very important. That's what makes them viral, indeed. But that's only part of the structure. It's also important to note that each of these begins with an ask. There is an actor, a political entrepreneur, an organization, whether it's Planned Parenthood, Invisible Children, PIPA-SOPA activists, Trayvon Martin's parents, and their well-informed lawyer who put out the petition. So viral engagement begins not with the people who click, but with the people who ask for civic engagement. And that is almost always an organization or a set of entrepreneurs, right? So that's the beginning of the structure. But viral engagement also has a political structure. Once some campaign begins to go viral, it enters a larger political ecosystem that is composed of interest groups, some of whom are for the ask, some of whom are against it, media coverage. Because the thing went viral, it becomes a mainstream media story, and there's feedback. The more people who see it in mainstream media then go to the internet, watch the Coney 2012 video, sign the change.org petition, whatever it is, and then when this movement gets big enough, the target responds. For a bunch of reasons you can imagine. I'm not sure exactly what those are, but just the fact that tens of millions of people petition changes the minds of legislators, governments, nonprofit organizations. Okay, so that's how I'm thinking about viral engagement right now, but that begs a set of important questions, namely, is it good or bad for democracy? I want to suggest tentatively that it's good for democracy, and I want to say that it's good for democracy in at least 4 ways. The first way is inclusion. Inclusion is an important democratic value. With regard to viral engagement, the important question is, does viral engagement bring new people into the political process? I think the answer to this question is yes. The kind of plurality viewer of the Coney 2012 video was a 12 to 17-year-old girl, right? Not your average Amnesty International letter signer or Human Rights Watch donor, right? Why 12 to 17-year-old girls? Because they're heavy social media users, and this video went viral through social media. So that's one example of one of the viral campaigns in which new demographics are brought into the political process that weren't in before. I won't dwell on that. Second value is political equality. The value of political equality is obvious. There are many different formulations. Mine is that all citizens should be counted equally in public decisions. Does viral engagement enhance political equality? I think at least in these 4 cases and some others, it does. And it does because the clearest example of this probably is the PIPA-SOPA legislation and that dynamic, right? There are many issues for which the political process is captured by concentrated interest who have some privileged position, or in which decisions are stuck in a narrow channel. You might think of the release of George Zimmerman as that kind of decision by local law enforcement authorities. What viral engagement does is it provides an opportunity for people to get mobilized and alter that decision in a way that I think arguably was not available to them certainly 10, maybe 5, maybe 2 years ago. Okay? So I think it does enhance political equality. Third question, what about public deliberation? This one is harder. I think a lot of people, your impulse is to think that viral engagement does not enhance public deliberation because it's so fast. It's a very simple message. Investigate George Zimmerman, knock down Pippa Sopa, arrest and prosecute Joseph Kony, right? I think these viral engagements do enhance public deliberation. They wouldn't enhance public deliberation if the whole public deliberation was the message of the viral engagement. But it never is. The viral engagement is only one entry into a larger conversation that preceded the viral engagement, and other conversations followed the viral engagement. So a whole bunch of human rights organizations came out against the Kony 2012 video because it was the wrong issue, wrong guy, wrong country, wrong priority. He's not even there anymore. He's much weakened, whatever. Lots of op-eds about this video is not constructive. But that's the case that proves the point. Is those are the subsequent entries in a larger political deliberation that wouldn't have happened were it not for the Kony 2012 video. Finally, civic education. Is viral engagement good for civic education? There are a lot of people who think no. Malcolm Gladwell, Evgeny Morozov, deride viral engagement as clicktivism or slacktivism. It's just too easy. And their counterfactual is the civil rights movement. Look, I'm all for participation. If it's, if it were my choice for Wendy to join a sit-in or to sign a change.org petition, it's the sit-in every single time. But that's not the choice. A lot of the people who are signing change.org petitions would either not be engaged politically at all, right, were it not for that opportunity, right? And so I don't buy the thesis that there's a displacement effect between online activism and offline activism. I think it's very likely the case that there's some other kind of dynamic going on. And so there's one possibility is that, that a bunch of the people that sign these petitions and engage virally, that's all they do. And if that's the case, that's a minor gain for civic engagement. There's a 15-year-old girl who now knows something about human rights violations in Africa more than they did last time, right? A minor gain for civic engagement. But if you go back to the structure of civic engagement, there's always a bunch of NGOs that are making the ask, right? So Planned Parenthood, right? Now they have several million email addresses that they didn't have before the Susan G. Komen campaign. And what are they going to do with those millions of email addresses? They're going to try to get those people to engage in more deep ways up a ladder of civic engagement that's more demanding than just signing a petition or responding to a Facebook like, right? So there also the consequences of viral engagement for civic education depend on whether or not the askers, the political entrepreneurs, are able to construct those next steps in the ladder of civic engagement. So there it is. I urge you to think about viral engagement as a way in which the internet may improve democracy and to think about what exactly that means. And my proposal is we should think about it on these kind of 4 dimensions, on inclusion, equality, public deliberation, and civic engagement. Thank you very much.